I want personalization.
I want to know what problem of mine you're going to solve, and are you going to make our commercial team more successful?
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Pitch Please on the Enablement Brew. I'm Carly Lehner.
And I'm Melvina Alsaik, and we're so excited you're joining us for yet another episode. And today we have a guest. Rory, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So Rory, co-founder and CEO of Trumpet, and very, very excited to be on the podcast today.
Amazing. So before we dive in, typical question, what does everyone have in their mugs?
I've gone slightly rogue with a oat milk flat white. So I'm recently converted to oat milk. Not sure about you two.
Yeah, oat milk I definitely prefer an oat milk. I have black coffee this morning.
It's that kind of day.
It's that kind of day. It's my second cup, but we're almost to the weekend, so a little bit of extra caffeine never hurt.
Yeah, I have a coffee as well with oat milk, but I realize I drink ridiculous amounts of coffee. I think yesterday I had like 8 mugs.
Wow.
Which is really unhealthy. I know and I'm really bad at it, I have to admit.
Do you have a cutoff point? Like this hour, no more?
So my mom is a nurse and she works in a hospital. And I think I got this from my mom. She can come home from her hospital shift at 9 p.m. at night, and she's like, I really just want a coffee right before bed. And she will drink a coffee right before going to sleep. And I think I'm like my mom. I can drink a coffee and literally sleep perfectly fine.
Wow.
I don't know I could ever do that.
Yeah, usually my cutoff is like 5 p.m. Like last night, it was 5 p.m. I had a couple more hours of meetings, and I was like, I could really use a tea. I thought to myself, that might be a really bad idea because I might not be able to sleep tonight. So, but yeah, Malvina, I guess you are just immune.
I'm just like an Energizer bunny now.
Yeah, lots of exciting things going on.
But anyway, Rory, tell us about Trumpet. What is Trumpet? What is it all about?
Yeah, good question. So Trumpet, we're pretty much reinventing sales. So Trumpet is based on the concept of microsites. So each microsite is a centralized, collaborative, and interactive space for buyers and sellers to get deals done, all the way from cold outreach to onboarding. The reason being is we think sales has become too messy, too elongated as a process. And, as you both know, the sales cycle just keeps getting longer. Too many tools, too many forms to fill, too many processes to go through. And Trumpet is looking to centralize that for buyers.
So your first statement was, we're trying to change sales, or I don't know exactly the words you use. Like that is a pretty radical statement. I love it. So why do you think microsites is the avenue to change sales? Like, tell me more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the way that we built Trumpet means that personalization is pretty much instant. As you both know, personalization is a must. It's not an if. And the other way that we built it is we handled the design for salespeople. I don't know about you two. I'm dreadful at design, but salespeople are often given, assets, content, decks, everything like that, and they need to personalize it for every customer. So Trumpet's pods, that's what we call our kind of microsites, handle all of that for salespeople. So it's drag and drop, it's quick, it's easy to do, but for the customer, it's just a seamless space, like everything they need, no friction. And if you think of all the tools that salespeople now have, from an SDR to an account exec to CS and onboarding and account management, that buyer throughout that entire journey goes through multiple steps. They get introduced to multiple people, multiple processes, multiple tools, and they are all disjointed. So we're trying to create harmony. And I think in the current market, SaaS consolidation is going to be a big part of that. So taking all your tools and putting them into one space, that's what we're trying to do. And we're just leveraging the power of microsites, which I think have been underutilized, especially in the world of sales.
So I'm thinking, and if maybe Carly is thinking the same thing, so who do you guys compete out there in the market, right? Because I hear microsites, I have some, buzzwords and other companies come to mind. And I'm wondering who you compete directly in the market with, and
Yeah,
then how you're different to some of the existing offerings that are out there.
yeah, really good point. So the sort of validation that we've seen is document tracking tools, DocSends and the likes, and people want to know, I've created a deck, a one pager, an asset for this customer. I want to know that's been opened. So that's like V1 validation. Trumpet incorporates that. You've then got the sort of process of creating personalized decks, pitch.com, beautiful AI, all these awesome tools that are 10 times better than PowerPoint. Apologies to anyone listening who lives in PowerPoint. And we don't really look to compete with them. They're definitely inspiration. And in fact, you can embed pitch.com into Trumpet's pods. But the way the microsites work is we do handle some design. So you want to give a personalized approach to every customer that you engage with. So there's that element of it. You've then got content management systems. You're looking at the Seismics of the world, where you're creating kind of space, pulling all your content together in one room. They're awesome. Love them. Big inspiration for us as well. But they're brilliant if you've got lots of content. You've got lots of assets, decks and everything like that. Not every company does. And that's, once you've created a deck, it's instantly out of date. And that's also a big pain point is, marketing create this deck, this template, and then they check in 6 months later and it's like, whoa, sales team, what have you turned that template into? It looks very different to what I kind of gave you back then. So the sort of control settings live within Trumpet as well. So there's all these different tools that aren't necessarily competitors. We see them as more like inspiration. And then you've got the deal rooms of the world. Most deal rooms are focused on enterprise and they're focused on the proposal stage of a buyer journey. For us, we think that's missing. Like you're missing out on everyone else. There's so many more exciting and interesting buyer journeys, SMB, mid-market, and everyone needs a tool like this. And we've built it in a way where it can be used from cold outreach to onboarding, not just closing the deal. So that's definitely one part of it. And the other part is the data. So the way, as mentioned, that you build a Trumpet pod, it's drag and drop. You've got these widgets. A widget could be interactive pricing, timeline, mutual action plan, a voice note widget. There's a whole bunch of interesting capabilities. And then we collect data for that. Our big focus is to then turn that data into insights saying, hey, this deal's gone closed. If you drop a pricing widget into this pod, it is 20% more likely that they'll re-engage. And we've seen that based on all of this data. So big inspiration for us is definitely Gong. As you both know, Gong is the market leader of conversational analytics. They'd probably be like, Rory, on this podcast, you are talking too fast. You're talking too much and you didn't ask enough questions. And that's kind of like what we want to get to in the world of pods. So telling people what good looks like, telling them what to do next and telling them how to build their templates and pods. So that's kind of how we're different. And, I think if you're in sales and you've got to get used to competition, it keeps you on your toes. It's a good thing. And it helps to educate the market as well. So
absolutely.
So yeah, we're excited by what's out there for sure.
Yeah, I like how you're saying that they're inspiration for you, your competitors and other, companies in this space. I totally agree. It's the right way to look at competition. It further elevates everyone in the space and it like further elevates the whole industry. So I definitely appreciate that. So let's talk about if I'm a buyer and you're selling to me and you use a Trumpet pod, do I as a buyer have to create a login? Do I have to remember another password? Like what's my experience on the buyer side?
Yeah, it's a question we get asked a lot. Like, what do these pods even look like? How do I get my hands on it? For a buyer, it's a one link, one stop shop. So if I was sending Trumpet to you, you'd get a link and you don't need to create an account because it's been emailed to you and we've got your email token. So that means as soon as you go into the pod, you can instantly collaborate and then the salesperson gets the data. And one thing we're currently introducing is a big play on that collaboration piece. So I'm sure you've used maybe Figma, Miro, Google Workspace, where when we engage on those tools, we can see, hey, each other online. There's your avatar up at the top. There's your mouse. That's being introduced to Trumpet as well. So what that means is you can work together with a buyer in the same space and help accelerate that deal, ask questions there and then. So it's a link, no account needed. And that's a big part of it because, we do not need another login for another tool, especially if you're buying multiple tools and it's sort of temporary as well.
Yeah.
Do you think that from the buyer experience, I've heard this a lot and I'm curious what your thoughts are. And I know this, I do this as well, right? If someone sends me a link, I'm like, okay, if I click on it, if it's a proposal, right? Or I don't know, a case study or some more information on the product, in the back of my mind, and maybe because I'm in enablement, I'm thinking, okay, if I click on it, Rory's gonna get notified that I'm looking at it, and then Rory's gonna give me a call 10 minutes later to say, hey,
Yeah,
I just wanted to go through, a particular, not referencing the particular, page number that I was on, but maybe tying that conversation to that particular section of the page where I was maybe looking for, at for a longer time. Do you think buyers are becoming more savvy and more, I don't know if defensive is the right word, but just more
cautious.
aware that this is happening and like you're
Yeah,
gonna have all the intel on me and you're gonna know where I looked, what I clicked, who I shared it with, who I forwarded it to, and so on and so forth.
I think there's definitely a part of that, but I think the way that we've built Trumpet and the positioning in it especially is it's buyer enablement. It's for the buyer's sake. We're pulling everything together to make their life easier. So yes, there's benefits for the salesperson, but really we want salespeople to deliver a beautiful experience for their buyers, not just focus on converting more leads or getting more opportunities and accelerating their sort of deal flow and deal cycle. That will happen as part of what we're building, but the real emphasis is on the buyer having a much cleaner experience. Let's get out of messy email threads. Let's stop dumping PDF attachments on buyers, hoping that they'll open it, because we know that they don't. And in fact, 6% of sales attachments are ever opened. It's the most painful stat in the world. You create all these awesome things, no one opens it. So yeah, there's definitely people who are savvy. I think what we're seeing, especially already with our current users, is they're communicating what Trumpet is when they're having, maybe that discovery call, that demo, and saying, like showing them on screen, like, this is Trumpet. It's a really easy space for you to kind of find everything you need and share it with your team, because we all know what a champion is. You're speaking typically to one stakeholder in the early days of a deal, and they then just become a messenger. And it's very difficult for them to communicate everything, all the excitement and energy that you put into a call and all the assets. They just forward it to their team via email. Who opens it? Not many. Whereas if you've got an interactive and exciting and kind of different new way of selling, there's more chance, and we're seeing already that wider stakeholders will engage. But yeah, we actually interviewed 100 buyers before we went ahead with building Trumpet, just to make sure they actually would engage with a tool like this. And the consensus was, yes, they wanted a simpler way to buy software, to buy in sort of the B2B world. And we're seeing that already. So buyers are getting sent pods. They're then clicking on the small powered by Trumpet at the bottom, and they're messaging us like, I've just been sent this thing. How does my sales team use it? So they're loving it. There's a lot of that going on as well.
Nice. Yeah, Malvina, I think I think that might just be an enablement leader thing, because I was literally doing that this morning. So we just implemented a software and I love it. I'm like, how can I expand this to more people? I'm going to go back to the pricing slide. They use HighSpot. And I know my salesperson is getting a notification. He's seeing I'm looking at pricing and what's included. He sent it to me 6 months ago, but I'm like, So I just like, I'm going to accept it. And if we need to have the conversation, we do. But I also think that might be a little bit of the fact that like we are so close to this space. But I think it's important for buyers to be a little bit more savvy. But yeah, I was just thinking about
You're
that.
going to get a call. If you didn't get a call, you're going to
literally.
Get a call.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he's on the West
Coast. Spot.
Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, okay. So speaking of enablement, Rory, so when you guys are selling Trumpet, who's the typical like entry point into an organization that you guys prospect into? And then at what point, if any, hopefully you guys bring in enablement?
Yeah. Interestingly, it's like quite a mix. So we have a free plan. So we're seeing a lot of people self-serve, just go and start sending out pods. We know salespeople do that anyway. They always go ahead and sign up for tools without asking for permission. It's the joy of every company.
That's smart on your part.
Yeah. That's from my own experience being in sales. But no, we mainly speak to sales leaders, RevOps, and sales enablement. There's sort of the three main categories of personas, and the feedback we're getting is great. I think SaaS is such a brilliant space. There's incredible tools that do so much to make our lives easier, from automation to optimization. And it's just people are looking for a way to tie everything together. You've got your video prospecting tools, you've now got GIFs, you've got automated email outreach, all of this, but where does it sync? Yes, it does on your CRM, but what about on the buyer side? So that's the kind of conversation we're having. Interestingly, it's definitely the data that people are kind of picking up on. So the analytics side of Trumpet, of basically like what content, what material, what templates, what works, what are people engaging with, and then the acceleration side. So we had a case study yesterday of someone speeding up their time to close by 40%, which was crazy, and they've only been using Trumpet for 1 month. So it's a big win for them. So being able to provide that ROI quickly is the main conversation that we're having with those type of personas.
I love that. So let me take it a step back and just hear your thoughts on gated content on websites, right? So I see a cool piece of content, and I saw a post about this actually on LinkedIn this morning as I was getting out of bed. But it's like, I see this nice piece of content from a company. I'm like, ooh, this looks interesting. Let me download it, right? So I hit the button, download here. And then it's name, last name, email, country of birth, passport number, all the possible details that you can imagine. What are your thoughts on that experience? And is that also maybe something that Trumpet is trying to change, or is that a little bit outside of your scope?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think there's always a space for gated content. I don't think all content should be gated. I think, for example, HubSpot do a great job of giving you the majority of the content, but it's like unlock more, put in your details. I think kind of attracting people to a page, here's the headline, here's what it's going to include, but now you have to access it with all of those details. Sometimes I think that's unfair. It depends on who the author is. If it's a Gartner report, it's like, yeah, it's going to be pretty good. I'll enter my details. Are we looking to like compete or sort of emulate that? There is capability if you wanted, gating a pod. So, but we see that more of a security play. So enterprise, you create a bespoke proposal. Yeah. I need to know who's opening this pod because I don't want it getting out into the open world. That's fair enough. But yeah, I think the more content that you can have on your site, the better. Whether it's gated, it's just dependent on your industry. The reason being is buyers do all of their research before they speak to sales. It's like they're sort of 70% away along the way of their buying journey before they engage with the salesperson. They've looked at competitors, they've looked at your site, they've looked at pricing, they've probably spoken to someone already that uses your tool. So if marketing can support them with that and give them awesome content, I think that's for the benefit of everyone.
Yeah. And this is what I tell, all sales teams. I'm like, by the time you're actually talking to that prospect on the phone and you're doing that discovery demo, like we need to ask all those questions because they would have done so much research, right? And you leave that, discovery or demo and you find out, I didn't ask this, I didn't find out about that. And it's like, oh, maybe I was uncomfortable asking it. Okay, but you have to remember they probably already did all that research before they even spoke to you.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think content is like a super important marketing strategy for companies. Like I receive tons of newsletters, right? But there are definitely vendors out there where if I need some like inspiration or if I like need to learn a little bit more about something, like there's some certain vendors out there who have really amazing content. I'm not a customer, but if I ever become in the position to purchase something along those lines, like they're going to be the first ones I call to explore it further. So Rory, how are you guys as a business thinking about content for your own marketing efforts?
Yeah, we've gone big on content since day one. So that's myself and the other co-founders like posting actively on LinkedIn, sharing the insights, learnings that we've gone through within the SaaS world. I don't think we put so much play on like the personal brand element. It's more just a case of LinkedIn is our community. That's where salespeople live. We want to share as much as we can with them. At the same time, we're big on blogs, and I think easy to digest content is a big hit with salespeople. Whether it's lists, it's kind of quick headlines or key stats and insights. That's what people look for, and that's definitely again inspiration, like you said, from awesome companies out there. So you don't necessarily need to sign up to a sales newsletter. I'm not saying don't, because there are awesome ones, but actually some brilliant SaaS companies have incredible newsletters they're not pushing what they do. They're just pushing useful content. So again, I emulate that. I always shared with colleagues and people I managed, like, sign up to these guys, and we're like, but we don't use that tool. It's like, their content is good, trust me.
Yeah.
So it's sort of those bite-sized nuggets of information, data, that you can then implement into your sales strategy. So content, again, I don't think it's and if we do it, it's like 100%. Yeah, you can't ignore the value of content.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
maybe a question that you've been asked multiple times, but what's your vision? What's your vision for Trumpet? What's that end goal look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I know every sort of young startup says we want to disrupt this space, but we really do. I think sales is in need of it. There's the sales. We want to stop the sales cycle getting more complex and getting longer. We want to help sales teams, marketing, CS create beautiful buyer experiences and increase collaboration between buyers and sellers. You're seeing all these stats of buyers not wanting to engage with sales. They just want to buy it without speaking to a salesperson. I think that's wrong. I don't think that really is the case. And we want to rectify that and change the perception that actually sales isn't a world of being sold to and pitching. It's actually far more engaging. It is a collaborative process, and we want to help enable that. Yes, we'd love to be global. Yes, we'd love to expand to the US. We do all these kind of things, but I think our big inspiration is similar to what Gong has done in terms of data and being able to help salespeople create better buyer experiences backed by data. So that's our big vision.
Love that.
Very cool. Well, I think that is a wrap for us this morning. So Rory, thank you so much for joining us. I thought this was a super interesting conversation around content and buyer experiences, and super exciting to see what you guys are doing over at Trumpet. So thank you so much for joining us. I hope you had fun.
Yeah, I really did. Thank you very much, Carly, my BNF, for having me on the podcast. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for everyone tuning in. We'll see you in a few weeks for a new episode. Bye.
Bye.